Thank you. Okay, I am Adriano Ercolani for Cinema Daily US. I am with Christine Jeffs, director of Any State, world premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival. First of all, thank you for the interview, Christine.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Adriano. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, my first question is, your movie is an adaptation of Karl Stucker's novel. So I wanted to know what made you think, okay, this is going to be my next movie. And is there any actually major difference between the novel and the screenplay?
Okay, well, those are two really great questions. The first question, why did I choose a story, has two parts. Firstly, I read the novel 3 times. I found it in my local bookshop. It's a New Zealand novel. I responded to it strongly, but I needed to think about it. And I was looking for a strong female character, and I loved the intrigue of the world. I loved the complexities and nuance and the themes in his novel, human fallibility. And personally, I had my eyes opened to the story of medical misadventure. So I think that's why, through personal experience, through the near death of a loved one, through medical mishap, I had spent much time in ICU, intensive care waiting rooms in the hospital space. And I had watched the overworked doctors, and I had watched the grieving families, and I had personally been into that space of grief and loss, and just as an artist, as a filmmaker, being part of it, but also observing and feeling it. And I think that's why it took me a little bit to go, do I want to dive into this? So both the novel I loved, plus my own experiences, drawing into wanting to tell that story. And then secondly, yes, there are big differences in the adaptation. And that has come from my wanting to focus on what I call the beating heart of the movie, which is the family. Now they're only in 2 scenes, but you can see the transformation and arc of the character from one scene to the character that Elizabeth plays, for her to have come to a place where she can sit with the family's grief at the end and be there emotionally for them and be truthful, and for them to not resolve, but to come to a space of some kind of reconciliation of a particular part of that path. We see them sitting surrounded by glass with the wind outside, and we see the pain that they still carry. I mean, that doesn't go away, but our character is given some kind of release by the fact that she was able to go full circle and come back and revisit the space which she didn't handle well early on.
Absolutely. I actually now I really want to read the novel. I already booked it at the library.
Oh,
I'm very
good,
curious about
good.
the adaptation. That happens when I love a movie. When I like a movie, I want to see how it's been adapted.
Yeah, and there's some other things, other choices I made as well, but I would say that would be the key one. And then there's other elements of the novel which about chaos, and about sort of consequence, which and the reporting of the medical results was more journalized and academic. So I took that into a space where it became about the bioethicist and the bioethics, and it became about consent and transparency, because I felt that those are things that people deal with every day. You sign a consent form.
Yes.
So I just sort of veered it more into that character of the bioethicist, so there were sort of amalgamating characters and kind of just focusing on one particular aspect of the data. So I
Makes
think
sense.
it's probably the other major, yeah.
What I actually love the most about A Mistake is that it is, of course, a drama, but it never turns into a melodrama.
Thank
And I
you.
think I think the key for this to happen was also Elizabeth Banks' performance. Always, not to go, never going over the top with her character. So I want to ask you, how did you work with her in order to find the balance?
Well, I think the first thing is she had to be believable and competent as a surgeon. So Elizabeth worked very hard to master the surgery, and she rehearsed and practiced with a surgeon, and also we had two surgical consultants and one on set, and she was very accurate and very capable, and that was really important that she had that solid for the character. So, you can see the camera pans down from her face and she's doing the stitching. She could take us all the way through the operation. So that was really important. And then the other part of it is really allowing her the space and it's a lot of her performances in the moments between the dialogue, the nuanced expression, the moments she falters, where her private self is exposed for the audience, but also kind of publicly in a way. It's about intonation and the balance of that. It's like there's so many moments where we see when she tells Richard, they're walking down the corridor the morning after the young woman dies, and she's so tough there. And then she goes in, and then she gets kind of, there's a choreography in the next scene where she speaks with the head of surgery and the head of the unit, and we see a choreography of male power starting to work and her not being backed up. And then we see her go to the family, and within there, you can see in the moments we've chosen to tell that part of the story, we see her start to understand that things have shifted. And she doesn't know how they're shifting yet. But we see when the father says, she says, oh, there was a complication in the surgery and da-da-da. And the father says, what complication? And we just see her sort of swallow and go. And also her having to sit with the grief. I think those kinds of moments build a character which pay off later, and also giving the father the power in the end of the scene where he takes the photograph of her, to not allow her to respond, but to allow her response to be way at the end of the movie. There's no cut back to her after he takes the photograph. We leave the power with the father. We leave the power with the family. And I think that's perhaps why they resonate. Well, I hope they resonate.
Oh, it definitely does. Oh,
For the
absolutely.
audience, right? Because we sit with those little shifts, and we start to become with the character, because we start to see her professional layer kind of chipped away. It gets chipped away at, and so it's giving Elizabeth the space for those things to affect the character as the film goes on. I think that's, I tried to take care to do that. I think,
It definitely worked. At least for me, yes.
Thank you.
You already portrayed complex and I think also layered female characters in Sylvia and Sunshine Cleaning. So can you find Fil Rouge, a link that connects Elizabeth Taylor in A Mistake with the two sisters in Sunshine Cleaning, or with Sylvia Plath?
Sorry, Adriana, can I find I just missed.
Oh, yes. I was wondering if you can find the link between the female characters that you portrayed in Sunshine Cleaning, in Sylvia, and in this movie.
Woo! Well, they're all strong female characters. They're headstrong. They know what they want. They're privately vulnerable. We see that. Interesting. We see an exposure of the private world come up in all of them. They're truthful. They're in complex situations, and there's hopefully they're all just such interesting human characters, stories. We can see some of ourselves or our situations and what we take out of you know, how they are and their humanness and their roles.
Absolutely.
Something, you know.
Mm, you basically almost answered this question, but I want to do it. I want to ask you anyway. Uh, I love also the social commentary in a mistake. It really talks about how a doctor, especially a doctor, is not a statistic, is not a number. It doesn't belong to that power struggle in order to make money. So, would you like in some way this movie to raise some kind of debate about this topic?
For sure. I hope that this is, you know, I think there's many conversations that can be had about all of this. And you know, what I love about some of the scenes is, for example, when she sits with the data collector, with the bioethicist, and he says, you know, sometimes maybe it's better not to do surgery. And we hear about, you know, there's a code for just letting people go. Like, to actually know that that kind of thing is articulated in the way that hospitals and patients intersect, and that there's a surgeon on one side, there's the families, and then there's the bureaucracy to know that these things can affect life outcomes. And we know about this. I mean, look at COVID, for example, and choices that were made about who's going to live and who's going to die. You know, it's like health services are overwhelmed, and we may not be aware, as we individually intersect with the health system, how that might impact us. And it's very, patient advocacy is just incredibly important. And the surgeons and the nurses work incredibly long hours. They're overworked. There's not enough to go around. So there's just these crunch points all the time where resources are not allocated for need necessarily. So it's such a huge question, such a huge conversation, and that's just one layer of the film. You know, there's, yeah, so
Hopefully, it will happen. I have one last fast question, which has been for you, which has been for you the most challenging scene to shoot in this movie in an emotional way? Because there are a few ones, I guess.
wow. I think probably the scene with the family at the end, because I think there's so much at stake in that scene, and to find a space for the actors to be where they need to be, and to truly listen to what's going on, for her to palpably feel their grief, and to allow the space in the process of shooting to create a space where that can naturally occur. There's a lot of forces which work against that, you know, when you're on a set. So I think that to get that tone there emotionally between the actors and between the characters, that was, yeah, that was, you know, very rewarding for me to, you know, I look back with joy about where the actors finally sit in the edited space there.
Yeah, but by the way, the shot with all three of them sitting at the table from outside the house, it was brilliant to me. I really felt the intimacy of the moment, but also the relief with a broader angle. That was really brilliant. I really love that shot.
Oh, thank you, because I feel like they're in a ship. You know, they're in the front of a ship surrounded by glass with the stormy wind outside, and then and like you say, it's such an intimate but exposing situation. And I feel like then we see them, like we look back and we go, well, there they are, and this has just happened.
Absolutely. Christine, thank you very much for the interview, and good luck for your movie.
Thank you, Adriana.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.